Hi, my name's Keel. I'm a 29-year-old visual artist from Edmonton, Alberta, and I identify as non-binary. Over the last few years, I've been attempting to stumble my way through my own gender discovery. This has involved dressing how I like, styling my hair how I like, adopting they/them pronouns, and generally just paying much less attention towards, is this socially acceptable for someone assigned male at birth? And just doing what makes me happy instead. Unfortunately, because every person is different, everyone's individual relationship with gender is also different. And this means that there are no real roadmaps to follow when you find yourself off the beaten path. There's no fast and hard rules to follow. However, I have found the most growth personally when I'm able to see snippets of my own journey through friends or media. This series will be about amplifying voices I have found to be underrepresented and telling the stories I'm eager to see. Hopefully, through this process, we can achieve a greater understanding of each other and, if you're anything like me, gain a greater understanding of ourselves. This is Gender. I hardly know them. For our first episode, we will be chatting with fellow non-binary individual Juliana. Juliana uses they/them pronouns and identifies as Japanese, Iranian, and disabled. Do we do a clap together?
Okay.
I like that we didn't count down.
No, we just had that trans telepathy.
Yeah. Translepathy.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like my gender identity has been like a slow burn, slow build situation, and I use the term non-binary as kind of like a catch-all. Some days I feel more masculine, some days I feel more feminine, and it's just like, for me, it's a nice shorthand rather than to get all into it, because for me, gender is like very messy and not easily labeled for myself anyway. I feel sometimes like I'm in the middle of gender boxes, and then sometimes I feel like I'm on the outside, and then sometimes I view it as like a spectrum that I'm on at a different spot. So I honestly I'm still exploring my gender. I'm still figuring it out. It's kind of like a cloud around me. But if someone was like, hey, what's your gender? And I was like, a cloud, I'd probably get ragged on really hard and made fun of. So I just say non-binary. It's kind of like a simple catch-all term just to describe, I have moments where I don't feel cis. I definitely feel like how I perceive myself is not the way the world perceives me sometimes. And definitely growing up, I mean, I'm perceived as a woman. I was raised as a woman, and that didn't always fit. Especially growing up, I was never like good at being a girl. And so I'm just slowly figuring out now how to kind of align how the world sees me with how I see myself, and playing around with like different combinations of those various things.
So we both have gathered some equipment here?
Yes.
Some makeup equipment?
Have my partner very graciously let me dig around in their makeup supply and just grab an assortment. I don't really know what half of this stuff is, but I'm excited to dig in.
Yeah.
And we're just going to go for it, yeah?
Also, this is not an educational...
This is actually a what not to do.
Yeah, if anything.
If anything, yeah. This is full of cat hair. Lesbian problems. We're going to go ahead and put that into the discard pile. I feel like the time during COVID where everyone was kind of in lockdown and at home, and I was just with myself a lot, I got to think about questions related to my gender expression, and how much of my gender is something that I experience on my own, and how much of it is like reflected back to me in other people and how they interact with me, and those kind of questions. Like, my gender is kind of 80s dad, like 80s, 90s dad. So like a lot of flannels, a lot of functional like outdoors wear. And so that was kind of my style. And then more and more throughout COVID, I realized, like, not necessarily that I was putting myself into another box, but I realized I could go back to that time in grade 9 when I had the side bangs and I was being a little bit, like, exploring a little bit more of the feminine aspects. During COVID, I realized, like, I can do whatever I want. I don't have to appear masculine all the time. I can play around. For the first time in my life, I did makeup, I'll say quotations, for Halloween. I gave myself like the worst eyeliner, I guess it would be called, like the little wing tips. I was like, I'm just gonna go for it. One was up and like one was down. Like, it was really bad, but it was fun. And for the first time in my life, like just over the last year, like this was last Halloween, I played with makeup, I enjoyed it, and I realized that I can kind of go back to those things that I dabbled in when I was younger, and reintroduce them in my life in a way that can feel affirming. So I think it was just a slow build of just doing the things that I enjoyed. I guess are typically viewed as more masculine. Like, I love chopping wood and like packing the car for camping trips. Again, I go for like full dad mode. I don't know why this has happened to me, but it's just who I am. The dad mode is just trying to express itself. So like, I've always been a little bit of a dork about like pocket knives and like outdoors things, and I really love this is so lesbian of me, but I love functional fashion. I don't even know if you can call it fashion. Just I like functional stuff. So like backpacks with like pockets and webbing on the side where like tools can go. Like that stuff I'm just a bit of a dork about. So I slowly started to accumulate those things just because of my hobbies. And I found when I was wearing them, like it just felt really affirming. Like I loved being able to chop the firewood, build a little fire when we're camping, and like, I don't know, something about that was really affirming. And I think slowly my wardrobe, my stuff just accumulated from those hobbies. Some of the features that give me gender euphoria. I like my brows.
Okay.
Courtesy of my Persian genes. I have good brows and lashes.
Yeah.
So maybe I'll start there.
Okay.
Oh my goodness. Did this actually at one point match my skin tone? Because I'm
No.
I'm feeling real white right about now.
When I was younger, I was really trying to fit into femininity that didn't work. So then I felt like I swung really hard the other way and was like, okay, I'm going to be really masculine. And now I'm at a point where I'm just more comfortable with myself. And I'm like, I'm not thinking about it all the time. I'm not thinking, is this masculine? Is this feminine? I'm just kind of doing what I like doing. And that's what's been ultimately most affirming overall. I'm finding like bits and pieces that I like from everywhere. And I'm not thinking so much like, am I doing a masculine thing? Am I doing a feminine thing? Or like, oh, that thing's too feminine for me. I'm just kind of doing what I like.
Well, this
That's what we
is
should have done.
much more brown than I was expecting. All right.
Did you swatch it?
No. Let me do it real quick. Yep, that's brown. All right, I'm trying to figure out what the next step now. Probably blush, right? If we're doing like foundation first, I think blush would be the next move. Oh, this is all in pieces. That's fine. It's
You know what? Same.
relatable. Why did you choose makeup today?
I chose makeup because I feel like in the past this has been something that has been very dysphoric for me.
Mm-hmm.
Like growing up, I never really knew how to do it, and I felt like I should. But even then, I didn't really know where to start. And also, feminine things for me were like very dysphoric, so I kind of resented them and shied away from them.
Yeah.
And I remember getting under the Christmas tree this huge box of makeup from my mom when I was like 16, and I was so repulsed. I'm like, oh, what is all that? Like it was one of those ones that opened and had like drawers with like,
Oh my god.
like,
So wait.
it was like a transformer.
It was like a tackle box.
Yeah.
But you would have liked to get like fish lures.
I would have loved if it was a tackle box.
Growing up, like I have an older sister,
Mm-hmm.
and my sister like got the kind of feminine things for Christmas and birthdays and stuff, and like we'd go over to like my grandparents' place, and like she'd put on like nail polish and things, and like it was one of those things where like as a kid I knew I wanted to do it, but I was embarrassed to ever admit that.
Mm-hmm.
I never really felt like confident enough to be like, yeah, I really want to try this.
Mm-hmm.
And like kids are like naturally curious, right? So
Yeah.
like I feel like that's kind of a normal thing for kids to want to do, whether or not they're like questioning the core of their gender. I think kids are like, that looks like fun. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm a child, and yes, I've been born into this society that, can be very binary, but I don't understand that completely yet.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think I understood it enough to know that I was feeling shame around it.
Mm-hmm.
And we were talking earlier about shame
Yeah.
regarding gender,
Yeah.
and how that can kind of manifest itself. in like not being able to admit the things that you do want to experience if it's not like, you know, it doesn't match your genitals, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is such a strange thing.
Yeah.
Your genitals say you are not allowed to have little sparkly eyelids.
Yeah.
No sparkly eyelids for you.
Yeah.
No, I totally agree. And honestly, I keep saying, and I'm keeping it light and trying to have fun with gender, but I feel like it is important to acknowledge, like, to get to this point where gender can be fun, definitely was an uphill battle. Like, for all the reasons that you are mentioning, like the shame.
Yeah.
Gender not really being something that was talked about, but also yet being so pervasive in everything we do. Like,
totally.
Just being able to have fun little times like this,
Yeah.
to explore and play with gender, I think is a real win.
Yeah.
I like that color on you.
I think it's a good one. I started with this orange and it was a little too orange, I think. But this one is a little more red, so I'm feeling it. I just hope it doesn't look like I have pink eye.
Yeah. No, you'll be
That's
fine.
my
Just don't put it
concern.
in your eyeball and you'll be okay.
Okay, no promises.
Yeah. But there was a music video with Ruby Rose in it. Do you remember this?
No.
This was like, for me, this was in middle school.
Okay.
And it was something about them being like gender fluid.
Oh, okay.
Or like, I wish I could remember anything about it, but I just remember seeing that video.
Yeah.
And for me being like, wait a minute, that's an option.
Yeah.
Like, that's an option. Like, they just had like really cool hair and stuff. And so, anyway, for me, that was kind of like a little opening point where I was like, what is this? Like, what is being gender fluid? Like, I feel like that opened the door a little bit.
There's something very empowering about seeing what you're feeling represented by someone else.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. It makes you, we were talking about this earlier, but it's just like, it makes you feel like you're not crazy for having the feelings that you're feeling.
Absolutely.
Especially when the world is constantly telling you like, that's weird, or they're not having conversations at all.
Yeah.
So to see that representation, like, okay, maybe I'm not making things out. Like, maybe this is a valid option.
Right.
And for me, like, as silly as like a little Ruby Rose music video was, just like seeing gender fluidity. Yeah, again, it just kind of opened things up. It just was like, whoa, that's an option.
Yeah.
Because prior to that point, I just never even considered that as an option.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was just like a tiny little revelation to me. When I was younger, I could feel gender in terms of like things that I didn't like. So if I was wearing a shirt I didn't like and I didn't feel affirmed, I think growing up it was a lot of like, how can I phrase this in a way that's better? It's like gender wasn't always present, but it was in a negative way. I could feel it in a negative way, and I'm excited about this point in my life where I'm just more comfortable with myself and I'm feeling gender in ways that are affirming. So like, it's gender is making itself known to me in a way that's like positive, whereas when I was younger it was always the negative things that brought it up, like wearing the awful pink frilly shirt. I was like, I do not like this. So I was used to gender feeling like that, like something that I don't like. And it's fun now to just be more comfortable with myself and to get to explore gender and be like, these are the parts that I like. I'm picking pieces I like rather than pushing away parts that I don't. You can just do what feels good. And it is hard because it's like you leave one gender box just to be put into another gender box. At least for me, in my experience, that's what it was like. And now to be at a place where, and again, I really feel like COVID helped this process for me because I was alone and I was at home. I mean, I was with my partner. I was in an affirming space, and then I was sucked away from society where I had time by myself to just exist. And wow, what a novel thing to just exist without an audience, and find out, what do I actually like? Going back into the real world post-lockdown, it was kind of like, it just depended on the audience, I guess. So if I was with like fellow non-binary or trans people, it could feel really awesome and really good. But then on the flip side, going back to work, going back to like general cis society, it was difficult, actually. I felt like I was in this like safety bubble for a while, where I was just at home with my partner or with my friends who really understand me, understand that I'm who I am outside of my gender, and my gender expression. Like, they just know me for me. And then going back into the world where it's like, boom, you're immediately perceived as your gender, as this, as that, getting misgendered all the time at work, that kind of stuff. So it's been difficult, but then again, like I mentioned, like it is nice to like see my friend be like, hey man, your mullet looks sick, and like stuff like that, like, hey, I like your dad's shoes, like little things like that feel really awesome. So it's a bit of a mixed bag, you know. If there's one moment I do remember gender being more of like, instead of a slow build, it was just like a realization. I had this like, not quite obsession, but I was just really into button-up shirts. And I didn't own any button-up shirts because like girl shirts at that time were like not like flannel, you know what I mean? Like flannel and plaid button-up shirts. So the only button-up shirt I did have was from the girl section pajamas. And like it was SpongeBob pajamas in a terrible teal blue with like Gary and SpongeBob all around it, and it just had buttons. And like it was the ugliest thing ever, but just the act of putting it on and buttoning up my shirt, like I knew in that moment, I was like, this is so affirming. Like I didn't know clothes could feel this way. I just remembered another gender affirming moment I had is I had the SpongeBob button up pajama shirt. Mm-hmm. I really enjoyed
Serving
that.
It.
Yeah. Yes. And then I also had this little like bath toy set that was like a Scooby-Doo shaving set.
Oh, okay.
And it was meant to like for your legs. So I would put like a big old beard on there and like shave it off. Like that felt really affirming. I also thought hair gel was really cool. So when I would go to my grandparents over the summer, I would always steal my grandpa's hair gel and like slick my hair, which looked atrocious.
You probably looked very like you were from Greece or something, right?
No.
No?
That's generous. But no. Because
Danny Zuko? Or
at the time I had really long hair, like down to my butt. And I also didn't know how to deal with it at all. Because I was in denial that I had like wavy hair.
I mean, that is a lot of hair.
It's a lot of hair. And I was like, I'm going to slick it. So I can imagine what all that hair would look like, just like slicked in, but only at the top, and the bottom was like. So like I mentioned before, I'm mixed Japanese and Persian. Mm-hmm. And I actually didn't know I knew my Japanese half from my mom's side, but I never knew my dad growing up. So I actually only recently found out about the Persian ancestry over the last year. Oh. And I was able to connect with like family and stuff. It's a whole thing. But back to hair.
Yeah.
Learning that part of my ancestry like made my hair make so much sense. Because growing up for me, hair was something that was really dysphoric. And not just for gender, but like it's something that really sticks out versus my Japanese family who have very straight, you know, hair.
Yeah.
So for me to have this, like I always thought I was just doing something wrong. My hair is frizzy. It's because, again, I'm bad at being a girl. I don't know how to take care of it. And it's just everywhere.
Yeah.
But once I found out about like my Persian ancestry and I realized I do have curly hair, and over the last year, I would say I've started like taking care of it and putting in more moisturizers and like curl cream and stuff. And like it's been such a journey to reconnect with that part of my identity. Yeah. And it's like almost signified in my hair, which is so not a thing that I really care about. Like I don't really care about my hair or my like looks or whatever, but it's funny how these kind of superficial things can have deeper meaning.
Totally.
So for me, it's like, yeah, whatever. Am I having a good hair day? But it's just like, it ties back to my culture and my family and these roots that I didn't know that I had.
Yeah.
And yeah, even with gender too. Like I'm really enjoying having hair that I'm learning how to deal with, and it feels affirming. So yeah, I feel like these baby steps have been really fun.
Yeah.
Something I talked about with my therapist was we were talking about culture and how people have this expectation that you learn about your culture when you're a kid because you grow up in it. And she was just reaffirming that like it doesn't have to be that starting point can be anywhere.
Right.
Which I never, for some reason, it just really resonated with me, like when she said that. Yeah. And it's kind of the same thing with like gender things. It's like I didn't learn how to do this during puberty when the other like girls in my class did. Yeah. But that doesn't matter. Like it doesn't have to be something you did then. The starting point can be anywhere. You can pick up a brush at any time in your life, play around with it. Yeah. Be beautified. And yeah, it can be at any point. Yeah. You can learn these things anytime.
Totally.
I definitely have my little gender cloud cluster of just like me and a few really close pals we're all non-binary, we're all disabled. We can just exist with each other, and we just have a deep level of understanding of what the other person goes through in their general life. So yeah, it's really nice. I think it brought us closer together. We just naturally kind of, it's like a magnet. We just found each other, and I think that tends to happen when you experience life in a certain way and the world treats you a certain way. You tend to find other folks that have similar experiences, and that's what I found anyway. You know what? I would rather have people have their comments to say about my authentic performance or my authentic self rather than a performance that I'm trying to emulate. Because like you said, they're going to say something anyway. So it may as well be about something that makes me comfortable and makes my life more fun. Like, it is way more fun for me to have like a little cowboy hat and to have my little boots and have my little hatchet than it was for me to have my skinny jeans and Hollister shirt and terrible side bangs. And at work, I have a name tag and I have my pronouns on there. And I was honest with my employers from the start. Like, I had to write a bio and introduce myself. And I do say, hey, I'm Juliana, and I use they, them pronouns. For me, it's just like, it's not worth the effort for me to correct the people in my workplace. I'm comfortable enough in my gender that I don't really care if someone says she or he. It's actually honestly kind of fun if I get multiples during the day, like collect them all. But if it's just like she, or ma'am, or lady, it's like constantly all day. I feel like that used to bother me more than it does now, but again, that time to myself just made me more comfortable. I'm like, you're going to perceive me the way you perceive me. That doesn't have to impact who I am, because you're not perceiving me right. That's your perception. So that's your business. So honestly, I say it from the start. I never hide it. But if I get misgendered, I don't really care, honestly.
All right. I don't know that I've mastered the cut crease, but I think I understand the concept now.
This tastes like one of those little eggs. You know the eggs?
Like the chocolate
The Easter eggs? Like the little crunchy ones? Mini eggs. Mini eggs. This tastes like mini eggs. Does that smell like mini eggs?
Oh, it does.
Yeah. What in the... I think I found their secret ingredient.
That's looking good.
Thank you. Okay, my butch moment of the year was my partner. They have this little like tire inflator in their car.
Oh yeah.
So I was going around and I was inflating the tires.
Yeah.
And then inside the cable, it broke.
Oh.
So I had to take out my multi-tool and like undo the wiring and then like retwist it and then like tape it back up, and then it worked.
Wow.
And then fill up the tires. That I'm gonna take that with me to like
yeah.
I don't know. For some reason, that was really affirming to me. So I like having, I don't know, I like feeling useful, I guess. The way the world perceives me is as a woman of color. And there's not really anything I can do to change that. And I don't really know how to explain this. It feels so complex. But like, if someone calls me a woman, sometimes it feels dysphoric. But when someone calls me a woman of color, I don't necessarily feel the same dysphoria. Because for me, those are my kin. Those are the people that are treated the way I'm treated in the world, because that's how I'm perceived. So in spaces with women of color, like, I do feel comfortable when people use that label for me. It feels like an accurate description of my experiences in the world. So it doesn't cause me the same dysphoria as like when I go to the drive-thru. I ask for my nuggets and I'm like, okay, ma'am, your total's whatever at the window. Like, you know what I mean? Like, in those moments, it doesn't sting as much, and it does feel more like who I am. I just feel the strong and resilient woman that I came from in those moments, like walking with me. Particularly like when I'm experiencing at work, for example, like microaggressions, or people are treating me differently based on their perceived whatever about me and my race and whatnot. I really feel my ancestors present with me, and I just really feel that kinship. I can just feel like their experiences, I'm experiencing the same ones, and it makes me feel like I'm closer to them in a way. When I'm having those experiences, it does suck, but then there's this other part of me that's like, this is what my grandma experiences. I've seen it, and I'm feeling it now. And it's something about knowing the strength of the women, this very strong women that came before me, to make it in this world, to tread the path before me. I just feel like I'm walking in their footsteps. I'm walking on the paths they paved, and like, I can do it, if that makes sense. I feel really affirmed when I'm with my family. It's interesting though because like I'm not necessarily out to my family. It's not a secret, but I'm not as loud about it with them as I am in like my general life, where I'm very openly queer. Like with my family, I've never told them like I use they them pronouns, for example. I just use them for myself and I use them for my partner. And so when I'm with my family, I feel so affirmed. I like see people who look like me. Like I guess my racial identity feels really affirmed, and then the gender one is kind of like lacking. I don't know necessarily if there's a space I've ever been in where every part of myself does feel affirmed. I think the closest is like when I'm at home with my cats. My cats don't care what I look like. They just want to snuggle me. Places where I don't feel affirmed is the drive-through, because they hear my voice, and for some reason every time it's like, thank you, ma'am. Thank you, lady. I'm like, you could just say thank you. You don't have to gender me. For some reason, I got a bone to pick with the drive-through. I mean, work, like right now, I used to work for like a trans research lab, which was nice on the aspect that my trans identity was really validated. But again, the whiteness in that space just was not very inclusive to me for my whole self, including my racial identity. So it's interesting how it feels like I always have to segment myself, and depending on what space I'm in. And I'm always kind of mentally policing, like, okay, I'm in this space, like how can I present myself here? And it's honestly exhausting. So for me, the most affirmed I can feel is when I'm at home with my cats, or honestly when I'm just out in nature. Because being out in nature reminds me, like, I'm perfectly fine the way I am. I'm part of this world around me, and it doesn't really matter how I identify. The trees don't care. The grass doesn't care. The lakes don't care. The mountains don't care. They're just happy I exist, right? So I feel like those are the most affirming spaces for me. Oh, wow. You just went for it. Okay. Okay. Yeah.
Wow.
Do you feel pretty?
I do.
Do you feel quite pretty?
I feel quite pretty.
You feel quite pretty
Yeah,
too.
do you?
You're like a pretty little girl.
Yeah. No,
Well, here's the big reveal.
Mhm.
It's the final product. I think we did a good job.
I think we did a solid
This
job.
looks nice.
Don't look too close, but I think from afar, it's serviceable.
Hey.
Your look is great.
Thank
I
you.
love it.
Thank
I love your nails.
you. Thanks.
I'm glad that you suggested that we do nail polish.
Yeah, no, me too. I literally
Yeah.
have not done this since a kid. So like,
Yeah.
I'm having fun with it. I'm having fun.
Your eye makeup, banging.
Thank you.
Your
As long as you
lashes.
don't look too close.
Honestly, though, I'm looking close, and
You
it looks great. So,
know, yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming on the show. Is that a thing?
I don't know.
I guess it's a
I guess
show.
so. Thanks for
Yeah.
having me on your show.
Thank you so much.
It was really fun to
This
play
was a lot
around
of
with
fun.
makeup.
Yeah.
I feel like you gave me some good tips of nail polish stuff, and I had a lot of fun.
Well, I feel like you had so many really, really interesting things to say, and I feel like I learned a ton today, honestly.
Oh, well, thanks for having me. It was a real pleasure.
Yeah.
And I got to see your cats. So
Yeah.
big wins. Big wins all around. Cheers. We did it.
We did it.